Hello, this is Jamie, and this is Supplierty News. Today we're going to be discussing Biden's recent speech to Congress, where he talks about his second phase of his initiative, the first phase being his infrastructure plan, and now we're going to be discussing, more specifically, we're going to be discussing the American Family Plan, or American Families Plan, I should say, and in addition to a couple of other things about how his Biden's first 100 days kind of went, where we're at today, and what he's looking to do over the next couple of months. But before we begin, as always, if you like the content we provide, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Right, subscribes definitely help to support what we're doing here. Make sure you also leave a like, leave a comment, and also share with other people who you think may be interested in this information. Okay, so as you can see, about an hour and 11 minutes ago, President Biden gave his speech on kind of what's going on today, his first 100 days, and where he's looking to move to in the future. I am taking this from CNN.com, or CNN Politics, as you can see in the top left-hand corner. Now, I understand, again, I try not to be political. I was looking for something that was going more in depth in terms of each part of his speech. I did check with all other news networks, and CNN was the only one that really was able to show this in a pretty succinct manner. So that's what we're going to go through. Obviously, this is left-leaning, so it is going to be a little bit more positive to some of the things that President Biden says. It wasn't a lot of pushback in some of the initiatives that he announced, so you take that as you will. But just note that I'm going to try to stick with the facts as much as possible in terms of just what he said, and give a little bit of my opinion, not a lot, in terms of what this may mean in the future. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So first up, obviously the big piece that needs to be spoken about is, the vaccinations and kind of where we're at today. So according to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Controls, nearly 235 million doses of the vaccine have been administered. So it's about 78% of the total doses that were delivered. That's about 2.2 million more doses reported than Tuesday. But the big pieces here is, 43% of the population have received at least one dose, and 29.5%, or almost 30% of the people in America are fully vaccinated. So really good news. Initially, President Biden said that he wanted to deliver 100 million shots. It appears as if he's more than doubled that. I think he did 100 million. Then he put out another number of, I believe it was 200 million. I could be wrong about that, but the fact that he's been able to far exceed that is a testament to him. So kudos to him. While it's not talked about a lot, I do think that President Trump, along with President Biden, does deserve some. Whatever you think about them personally is what you think, but I think it is a combination of both. Yes, I understand that President Trump delayed his actions in getting these vaccinations started, but once he was able to do that, this did make the vaccinations come a lot quicker than they normally do. Because of that, we're now benefiting on that. I'm going to skip over this Nation in Crisis. More so going to look at kind of the initiatives, what he's talking about, and what we're going to be focusing on today. Biden is also talking about the relief bill. Here's a reminder of what's in it. Obviously, he's going to tout that because it passed. The big piece there was the stimulus checks. We got every person making under, I think it was 75,000, got 1,400 per person. Families received an additional 1,400 per child. Unemployment assistance, $300 federal boost, state and local aid, small business. Where is it? Small businesses. The bill provided $15 billion to the emergency injury disaster loan program that, as you know, was extended until May 31st. So really good for small businesses. Basically, what we're just looking at here is just a huge package where they were throwing money to try to solve the issue as vaccinations were going out, and as it appears as if states are now opening up. So just kind of touting that, showing, I'm sure he was talking about how great it went and all that good stuff. As if you're the president, that's what presidents do, right? Just talk about how great I'm doing, especially when they start off, and how we're moving into the future. So far, just from what I've seen, states are opening up now. And again, with these vaccinations hitting the 200 million, we're headed in the right direction when it comes to the health piece. Obviously, there's other things that we need to do, but in terms of where we're at today, you know, you can say all the negative things you want, but we're heading to opening up, which, you know, is a good thing. Next up, President Biden pushed the wind turbine, so basically alternative energy. So as you know, with President Trump, he tried to, you know, bring back coal, which objectively speaking failed miserably. I mean, I don't mean to be mean, but it just failed. In fact, at the very end of his presidency, he started pushing alternative energy. So it appears as if President Biden, like, that's just going to be the main focus here, alternative energy, and trying to push that. As you can see here, the American Jobs Plan will create millions of good-paying jobs. There have been studies on it that have shown that there's more money in alternative energy, especially if you can make it work to a broader audience versus, you know, old types of energy that we've seen in the past. Okay, the American Jobs Plan will help millions of people get back their jobs. Obviously, he's going to push that. President Biden made the case for the American Jobs Plan by appealing to those who have been impacted by job losses. Yep, here it is. 2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during the pandemic, obviously trying to bring them back. So that is going to be a focus as well. Getting people, now that, you know, the vaccinations have gone out, getting people back to work. One of the ways that he's going to be focusing on doing that, obviously, is the infrastructure plan. But the second piece will be the American Families Plan, right? So he's looking to get another 1.8 trillion. So if you combine the 2.3 trillion infrastructure plan with the 1.8 trillion, we're looking at over 4 trillion that President Biden is trying to get from Congress in an effort to build up the infrastructure of America, as well as again with the Families Plan. We're more so looking at it really is a focus on families, right? So there's been a couple of studies that have come out recently, like in the past couple of weeks, where it has talked about, in particular, millennials aren't having kids and aren't having families, and the families that are being created in terms of wealth, they're exceptionally low. I'm going to be doing a podcast about how, you know, there's a generational gap between, you know, millennials and baby boomers, and how the wealth gap is just increasing. When you look at white millennials and families that are families in that manner, their wealth is only 88,000, and for black families, for millennials, it's around 5,000. So there is definitely a huge gap when it comes to millennial families, and there is definitely assistance that is needed. So it appears as if President Biden is speaking to that. A couple of things here. President Biden proposal calls for having low and middle income families pay no more than 7% of their income on child care for kids younger than 5. Parents earning up to 1.5 times the median income in their state will qualify. He's also looking to make community college free. Now, this is pretty interesting, and I'm surprised that CNN didn't pick this up. There's actually one state in the United States that offers free community college, and that is a Republican state. And of all Republican states, it's actually the state of Kentucky, right, where Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell hail from, both people who are some of the most government shouldn't provide anything in any way to anybody. You need to go out here and get it on your own. So it's just kind of ironic that the only state, well, it might be two now, but the first state to do that, I know that for a fact, to offer community college for free is actually the state of Kentucky. So when you hear about, you know, hey, we need to make community college free, I'm 100% sure that's how they're going to promote it. When Obamacare was looking to get passed, every time a Republican tried to say something negative, they always reminded them that this is based off of a Republican healthcare in Massachusetts by Mitt Romney, which I'm surprised Republicans didn't lean into that more. But making community college free, which, I mean, again, I don't like to give my political opinion, but like, if I'm Republicans, I would lean hard into that. Like, just, you have a state that does that, and from what I've read, the little that I've read, it's going pretty well. Like, I don't lean into that. You can get some political points off of that. Anyway, next up, enhancing Pell Grants, obviously for low-income people. They're trying to increase that so that more people can go to school and not be in debt. paid family leave, as well as investing 200 billion in universal preschool for 3 to 4 year olds. And really, the big piece here is trying to make it affordable to raise kids, right? I mean, we've seen the numbers. I think it's about 500,000, or maybe it's 1 million, that it's going to cost to raise a child in America until the age of 18. So it appears as if they're trying to do what they can to lower that, to entice more people to have kids. Now, if you missed it, the census actually just came out last week, I believe, or maybe it was earlier this week. Sorry, the weeks are like coming together, but there was actually the census came out where it gave new electoral votes to certain states. So Texas obviously increased, and then other states, like particularly in the Midwest, lost some electoral college. I'm thinking numbers now, but you know what I mean. The electoral college. Each state has a certain amount of votes. There it is. So some states lost their electoral college votes, and Texas, the big one, that gained 2. But with all that being said, the big piece that was completely not talked about by a lot of news outlets I saw was the fact that the population has not increased the way that it needs to be increasing. With baby boomers heading towards retirement, the amount of the population that needs to be working in order to support that needs to be a lot more, and our population has just dropped, is not increasing the way that it needs to, and a big piece of that is because it's so expensive to raise families now. So the fact that he's looking at tackling this issue is an important issue. So we'll see where that goes, but it's very interesting that he's looking at infrastructure and families, which in my opinion are two things that need a hard look at. Okay, buy American. Nothing too big here, obviously. Pushing more the Trump kind of buy America first type of plan. Well, he's not doing America first, but the buy American, which is very similar to the Trump piece, which regardless of what you think about him, that particular piece of his talking points was extremely popular across party lines. America, we need to look out for America first, and then after that, everybody else comes. And it appears as if Biden is trying somewhat to look at that as well. So I'm going to skip over fact checks because people may not, at CNN, take about that what you will. Interesting here, Biden has tagged Vice President Harris with taking the lead on the broadband component of the American Jobs Plan. So that has to deal with the infrastructure. Now, here's something interesting. The infrastructure proposal, Biden said, will create jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of rural Americans who still don't have it. Very interesting. So he's going to put Vice President Harris over that. I'm curious to see, let's say if this does go well and they are able to do that for rural Americans. We do know rural Americans are leaning right-leaning. I'm curious to see what benefit they'll get from that, if any. But pretty interesting that he's decided to put Vice President Harris in charge of that. I don't know her background when it comes to doing something like broadband and making sure that gets done correctly, but that's going to be the person in charge. Not exactly sure what her role will be and her responsibilities, but that's what he said. Going to skip over this. Biden remembers son Bo, just about cancer and his support for that. One of the facilities was named after his son, and he wants to give more money to cancer research, which makes sense. More of a personal piece, which I have no problem with. Biden makes an appeal for bipartisanship as a means to compete globally. Is this his phone call with the president of China? I don't believe so. Okay, it may be here. Where is it? Where he talks about? Okay, so I may have missed it. Well, if I'll just talk about it here. President Biden talks about how he did have a phone call with the president of China, and basically the argument that he made was that the president of China was actually here it is. Biden went on to have a 2-hour conversation with Chinese President Xi upon taking office. As you can see here, the president of China believes that democracy is a negative thing, and because they're an autocracy, it's a lot easier to get things done, which, I mean, from a process standpoint, over the past couple of years, he may not be wrong on that. But the key piece in why democracy works is that you get a lot more people, a lot more representation of supposedly of regular people. So with this piece, it's just kind of pushing the whole like, hey, we need bipartisan in order to compete globally, and in order to do that, there has to be some type of agreements being made on both sides in an effort to move forward. Next up, again, how is he going to be paying for this? Biden is really going after the wealthiest 1% of Americans. He really is. That is basically his. That's basically how he's going to plan on paying for everything. So as you can see here, anybody making over 400,000, he's going to raise taxes, and then things such as like capital gains. If you're making over $1 million, he's going to tax that as well. So he is looking at completely taxing the top 1%. Like he is going to increase taxes a lot for them, and he believes that will pay for everything. Next up, he does ridicule trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics, obviously, really big when it comes to the Reagan theory. Tax cuts didn't make a lot of people a lot of money. Statistically speaking, I mean, this is just a fact. The bulk of that money went to the wealthiest, really 1% of the 1%. So what the argument he's making is that while, GDP is doing the best it's ever done, regular Americans aren't really seeing that. And, unfortunately, while we have been giving tax breaks to the wealthiest, the average American has not seen that benefit either. And because of that, it's just where he kind of ridicules. Because of that, he ridicules Trump's 2017 tax cut, which I feel like I'm taking sides here, and I don't mean to, but it's just, hey, commendable to President Biden for attacking Trump where he's weakest at in this piece. And one of the pieces that he was exceptionally weak at was that 2017 tax cut. I mean, it was such a bad policy that even when he was going for re-election, Trump didn't even mention the tax cuts anymore. He tried to kind of phrase it as, hey, if you re-elect me, I'll keep in the middle class tax cuts. But I mean, polling showed that just nobody was in, even his own party. I mean, even his own people who supported him were not in favor of this 2017 tax cuts because it just overwhelmingly benefited the rich. So he's going to try to close that down. I'm not sure if he's going to try to keep the middle and lower class tax cuts that were there. They are set to expire if they haven't expired already. So I'm not exactly clear on that, but most definitely he's going to get rid of the tax cuts for the rich for sure. Talks about he is talking about how he's going to withdraw troops. We've heard this before, so we'll see if that happens with President Biden. So I'm not going to go too in depth with that just because every president promises that. So we'll see if that happens. But the last piece here is the George Floyd justice. As you can see, obviously, again, this is kind of CNN leaning. Justice and Policing Act. So just kind of going over a couple things here. Again, I'm more so of a business focus, so I'm not going to go too in depth with this. But just some of the things that they want to ban chokeholds, ban no-knock warrants, et cetera, et cetera. You can read that for yourself. And then lastly, the Asian hate, another piece. Where is it? I may have already skipped over. Here it is, immigration. All right. So the last piece that I want to talk about that he spoke about was the immigration. Now, here's something that Biden has been weak on. That a lot of the presidents over the past couple of years have been weak on that, and that's really immigration. So as you can see here, Biden has moved to reverse many of his predecessors' anti-immigration policy, which is pretty interesting here. The consequences of those restrictive measures linger and have contributed to a massive backlog of nearly 2.6 million visa applications. So that's really interesting. That might also be a reason why our population has seen such a drastic decrease in growth. A lot of people don't know this, but what helps America grow is actually immigration. Whether you like immigration or not, the reason why America has been able to grow the way that it has is because of immigration. There is benefit to allowing immigrants to come to America and help our society grow, right? There's some negatives to it as well. Nothing is 100% positive or 100% negative. Obviously, there's more benefits to it based off of our history and based off of the people who have led our country towards very positive things. But it's really interesting. You got 2.6 million visa applications that are backlogged. Where is it? Nearly 500,000 applicants who are documentarily qualified, so they can already be American citizens or already come over. They're just in the backlog. I actually know a couple people who are in the backlog myself. So they're going to try to do something with that, and obviously, get more people to come into the country. From a population standpoint, that is actually something that our country needs right now. So that's actually a good thing. If you're getting into your 60s and 70s, and you're worried about, how we're going to, take care of you as you move forward, this is actually something that you have to support. More people here and more people that are paying taxes is better for everyone. Now, a couple other things, again, that I'm not going to get into: gun reform here, and then Biden wraps up his speech. President Biden wraps up his speech. But that's really the big pieces that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to show really quickly. I'm not going to go too in depth on here. Once again, also from CNN. But kind of what's in the 1.8 trillion American Families Plan. So I'm going to skip over a lot because a lot was already spoken about. So like free community college, things like that. But there's a couple other things that I want to talk about here. Another piece that wasn't mentioned in the other piece, but recruiting more teachers and strengthening the educator workforce. This is obviously very important. What Congress is trying to do is give more scholarships to teachers worth more. So that they can come, so that more people can be interested in becoming teachers. Teachers is a profession that obviously we need as many people as possible. They are underpaid. It's constantly underfunded. When you're looking at educational systems, just underfunding after underfunding. This is something that I believe everyone can support. Just more money going towards educational systems, teachers, to get the best people possible to, teach young people. That is exactly what we need. Next up, providing more nutrition assistance for children. Biden wants to invest $25 billion in the summer pandemic EBT permanent and available to 29 million children receiving free and reduced price meals. That's another thing that's really, I think, important. It's interesting, like when the pandemic hit, a lot of people don't know that, a lot of kids get their food from school. So when they weren't able to go to school, they were having issues with eating. So definitely we need to, so schools and for some kids were places to come and, feel safe and get a meal. So bringing that back and investing more in that is definitely necessary. Next up, just a couple of things that they want to keep, such as like the child tax credit through 2025, beefing up Affordable Care Act subsidiaries, things like that. The big piece here is how does Biden plan on paying for it? Kind of like I mentioned recently, it's all about taxing the rich, right? Raising income tax on the rich, raising the capital gains tax rate, again, on the rich, taxing unrealized capital gains at death, again, for more than $1 million on the rich, ending breaks for hedge fund partners and real estate investors, again, for over 500,000 on the rich, and then enhancing IRS enforcement, focusing on getting more money or making rich people pay more than they currently are. So that is 100% how it appears Biden is going to pay for this. It's going to be very interesting, right? Because the Trump idea was less taxes for the rich is going to make us more money. That didn't work. Again, objectively speaking, that just did not work. So what President Biden is going to do is the exact opposite and say, well, we tried it with the tax cuts in 2017, just simply didn't work. So now we're going to raise all the taxes. So it may go the exact opposite, right? Where he does too much taxes and then it's terrible for the rich. And then, they decide to move their businesses outside of the country, which is the threat that's being made. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But I do believe that there is a thing where we're taxing them too much and then they leave, right? So it appears as if what we're trying to do now over the next couple of years is trying to find that median where we can figure out how much can you tax the wealthy and they still stay in America and they're still willing to do their business and do what they will, as well as support regular everyday Americans with things such as like childcare, right? Like that's reasonable. Healthcare is reasonable. Things like that. There are some things that you may not feel are reasonable. There has been pushback for like free community college, for example, but some of these things I do think are reasonable. That raising taxes a little bit. We'll see. People are okay with the amount that taxes are being raised, but that raising taxes in order to support, I think we can all come together and support. there's already been tons and tons of studies done, polls done. If you ask anybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, everybody is in favor of raising taxes on the rich. So that won't be a really big issue for President Biden to get support on at all. But, again, let's see how the rich feel about this and what they're going to decide to do with their businesses, which is also a very important piece to this. So. All right, so that's it for me. Just giving my thoughts as well as a quick summary of President Biden's new plan and how that could potentially affect everyone. I typically look at small businesses in general, but the infrastructure plan was more so when it comes to small businesses. This one, again, because it's dealing with families, it's more so about the person itself and how we're building wealth on an individual basis. So I definitely want to cover that regardless because I do think it's necessary. But with all that being said, I know I've been talking for a while. If you're still here, thank you so much for listening all the way through. As always, make sure you subscribe to the video, leave a like, comment, and also share with other people who you think may be interested in this content. With that being said, thank you so much for your time.